Okay, let's start by going straight into the remote data wall and see what it looks like in use. So this is a remote video wall. A remote video wall is something that we at Bridgetech, one of our sales guys, I believe, just designed this particular screen. This happens to be the screen that we're looking at. The remote video wall is completely and uniquely configurable. It can be anything. You can have any widget, any thumbnail, clocks, all sorts of different things, and we'll show you how that works during this presentation. So this is what it looks like. It can be as unique as you want. You can show exactly the sort of data you want, and because it's a web page, let me just clean that up a little bit. Because it's a web page, it's viewable anywhere in the world. The VBC that I am accessing now is in Oslo. I am accessing this VBC from my home in the UK, where I'm locked down along with everyone else. So this is truly a remote monitoring visualization aid. So I just want to show you one slide, only one slide, and then we'll get straight into how it works and how it's configured. The remote data wall is basically a highly configurable display of probe data and thumbnails. We've gone to a lot of trouble to make sure that data that the probes collect, as well as the VB288 thumbnail extractor, that this data is accessible in a visual form. And we've given users complete flexibility on how they arrange this data on these unique screens. We use a concept called canvases. That won't be particularly unfamiliar to people. The users configure these canvases and they are literally blank canvases to start with. It features drag and drop and resizing, very, very intuitive. Once you've used it once, you'll be using it very easily. Hundreds of canvases are possible. Technically, or rather theoretically, there is no limit to the number of canvases that are available. But of course, the storage on the VBC will limit. But certainly hundreds of different canvases are available. It's HTML5 based, so it's really flexible. You can be watching this on a smart TV, on a 56-inch monitor. You could be watching it on a smartphone or a tablet, and you can design the individual screens to accommodate the size of that. You can arrange and design the canvases to accommodate individual streams. Canvases may be assigned to one or more devices, and by a device I mean, for example, a smart TV, the web browser in a smart TV. It could be a tab in a web browser. So if I had, for example, on my PC, if I had Chrome running and I also had Safari running, then the VBC, the remote video wall, would actually see those two browsers as two different devices. And canvases can be assigned to more than one device. Dynamic updating of data, so anything that changes is updated automatically and you see it as a dynamic display. And we can do things like carousels, so we could have a smart TV somewhere running in an MCR or a NOC, and it could be rotating through 4, 5 or 6 different canvases. So show a canvas for a minute, then rotate to the next canvas. So it's very useful in that it's completely visual, and it enables users to get the most out of their probe and monitoring system data. Right, that's as far as I'm going to go with the slide. No more slides. That happens. Okay, so we saw this tab. This is a tab in my Chrome browser, and this is showing one particular canvas. So if I switch to the VBC server, and this is the view that most people are familiar with. Now the thing the RDW is, it's a VBC option. It is not linked to any specific probe, except in the sense that if you want thumbnails, then you require a VB288 thumbnail extractor. If you are requiring things like RF constellation diagrams, then you'll need an RF probe, and so on. But the mechanism, the code, if you like, the logic for the RDW resides in the VBC, and it is a licensed feature. If I go to my VBC and I look at my About tab and I look at licenses, you will see that the remote data wall is an option. It doesn't require any hardware other than the probes I just talked about. It's simply optioned and then it runs. So let's see how it works. It appears as a menu item on the left, and we look at this rather unassuming screen that we're seeing here. This unassuming screen that we're seeing here. Now we can see canvases, we can see devices, and we can see tags. We'll look at those in a minute. But canvases, here are the canvases, the blank canvases, the user configured canvases, and they appear on this screen. The other thing I need to tell you is that I am logged in as an administrative user, so I have full administrative privileges on this VBC. That means I can see every canvas that's been created and every device that's been assigned. Now, if I were to log in as Martin, as an ordinary user without full privileges, then I can only see the canvases that I create as user Martin. So again, that user access control is brought forward into the RDW as well. So people can only see RDW canvases that they in fact create. So you can see that we've got several canvases here. First of all, there's the tutorial canvas. Now this is quite interesting because it's effectively just a load of text boxes on a screen. And this tells you in very brief terms how to set up a canvas. Now the full details are in the VBC manual, and there's an extensive RDW section in the VBC manual, and I definitely advise you to go and have a look at that if you want to know much more detail about how this works. We're going to be looking at an overview and some of the key features really. So there in the in this particular tutorial canvas are some quick get you up and running instructions. So I can create a new canvas and I can create a new carousel. Remember I said the carousel allows me to assign more than one, two canvases or more to a carousel, and the carousel will then move these canvases around and rotate through them. So we have some canvases that people have built. Now I'm going to show you those in a minute, but what I'm going to show you are the devices. So you can see we have multiple devices here. Now devices 194, for example, these haven't been renamed. Some of them have got meaningful names, like Simon's office in our HQ in Oslo. The RDW, one of the 56-inch screens, the left-hand 56-inch screen above the sofa in the office, and so on and so forth. So it's easy to give these canvases names, give the devices names that are meaningful. Reception, MCR, all those sorts of things. So I happen to know that this device that I'm looking at here, oh, it's disconnected, that's really helpful, is device 199. Okay, so now it says connected, and I can identify if I lose track of what device 199 doesn't really mean anything. So if I click on identify and I go back, we can see device 199 in the middle. And this would be a TV screen or a tablet or a smartphone, anything that happens to connect. So the way in which you do it simply, and it does tell you here, is by in a new device, you just point your web browser at this particular URL. Now obviously that's our Bridgetech URL, but this would be customer's own VBC /RDW. And then that immediately identifies this to the VBC as a candidate RDW device. and then the device comes up. You can give it a name if you want to, which makes a lot of sense. And then you can assign which of the canvases you're actually going to make as a default. So we could say, let's just say Ott Multi-Screen, and go back to it and see what that is. So you can now see that this is now a different canvas is now showing, and it's changing it as simple as that. Right, let's start a canvas and see how it works. So I go back to canvases and I create a new canvas. We'll give it a name. We'll say training. Oh dear, what's going on today? It tells me that the owner is admin. So some of these canvases belong to user demo and some of them belong to user admin. So my training, because I logged in as admin, is giving me this training canvas as user admin. So I now have a blank canvas, literally a blank canvas. I can turn the grid off or I can turn it on. I can do snap to grid, and that enables me to, when I position thumbnails or widgets or clocks or any of these other things that I can put onto a canvas, it enables me to snap to grid. So that makes alignment and the design, a nice organized design of the canvas look really good, and it's very easy with snap to grid. So I can define its width and its height. So we've got a 1920 by 1080 screen, which would be perfect for a large monitor, a smart TV. And I can do things like I can fill with a color. So I can make it grey, I can make the background grey, I could make it any color I wanted to. Ooh, some of these colors are a bit garish and horrible, but the point is it's completely flexible as to what the background of the screen looks like. Let's go back to grey, because grey is quite nice and neutral. I can make it, yeah, there we are, something like that. So that defines my colour. I can put a border around it and I can change the size of the border. And this would appear around there, 5. Text, we can make text on the on the screen. We'll show you that in a minute. So there we have a canvas. So now we want to add something to it. We can zoom this way. You can zoom back in and out using the mouse scroll wheel actually as well. So that again is a nice useful tool. I can position the canvas anywhere on the screen I like using the hand, and now I can actually start to add things. So let's start with a thumbnail, because everyone wants thumbnails. So nothing's happened, but now the canvas is waiting for me to add a thumbnail, and I can add a thumbnail by simply doing that. So now I have a thumbnail frame. I need to choose what thumbnail I put into this frame. So let's just pick up CNBC Europe via VB288. So remember, you must have at least one VB288 to produce the thumbnails. VB288 does also other things like QoE measurements. We discussed that last week. If you didn't attend last week, then the video is up on the YouTube channel looking at the looking at the VB288 in quite some detail. So let's add CNBC Europe. We can do a status border. Now, if you remember, on the VB288, we have the remote video wall, and that video wall shows thumbnails. The thumbnails have a status border, and that status border can be either green, yellow, orange, or red. Green means everything's fine in the entire monitoring system. Yellow means a warning somewhere in the system. Orange means an error somewhere in the system, and red means no signal somewhere in the system. So that actually means that somewhere the multicast has failed. So that's status. So we can put a status border around it, and it's green. Now, I'm not entirely sure why that didn't turn up. Let's find something that actually comes up. There we are. So we've actually got a picture here. And I can resize this to make it properly 16 by 9. I can make it as quite small. I can make it quite big. So I can do complete flexibility over the size of my thumbnails. The grid is a 10 by 10 grid. So if you were really diligent and you made these thumbnails really as small as possible, then you could get 100 thumbnails onto this screen. So let's add, oops, wrong button. Let's add a loudness. We select we could position that over the screen if we wanted to. We could move it outside the screen. We could make it exactly the same size as the screen, like that. You have complete flexibility. I could move it over here. It doesn't matter. I could add things like a media window, which is the graph of inter-arrival time. So I could see, sorry, not a media. Yeah, I can add a media window, but what I'm actually thinking of is a micro timeline. So I could see how this multicast behaved over the last 4 days. So where's a micro? Let's find a micro timeline. There's a micro timeline there. And we could add that there. Oh, you see, you can actually multi-click and click multiple icons at the same time. So let's select, what was that? It was Airang, wasn't it? Airang TV. Oh, I can't be finding this. I'll have to find something. There we are. Okay, so now we have a nice little micro timeline there. And the first thing I can tell about this micro timeline is that almost exactly 2 days ago, I've got a red line 2 days ago, right in the middle of this 4-day graph. So 2 days ago, I lost the signal for this particular multicast. And then I could go away. What you can't do on the remote data wall, the RDW, is you can't click through it. That's the one thing you can't do. This is a read-only device, if you like. It's not active in the sense that you can click through. But you know exactly which stream this is, so it's only a matter of going up to monitoring and looking for that stream and finding it relatively quickly. I can do things like I can add let's have a look. What can we do? Let's get rid of that. So we can display a bottom center. So we can add things like the display name. We could actually add a text box if we wanted to. And I could add, please watch this. And we could do something like that. Oops, I need to go back to that. So we could, again, you can put anything you like here. We can put logos up, we can put JPEGs. So if you wanted to personalize this particular screen with a company logo or a channel logo, absolutely easy to do. We can add clocks. So again, things like a multi-time zone clock would be really easy. So OTT, let's just go through these very quickly. Web means that, assuming my VBC has access to the internet, I can go to the internet and bring a web page back and display it on here. It could be something like a ticker, it could be something like the weather, it could be multiple different things from the internet. And that could be just positioned there like a little web page. Text box, we saw me put a text box. We've seen thumbnails and loudness. Media window, again, I don't know how much we've got. We're seeing things there. I'm not entirely sure what this is showing me. Media loss rate, in other words, dropped packets and into arrival time, jitter. So again, I'm not entirely sure which. There we are. We can actually see a media window there, so we can see the no drop packets actually, but we can see nice even into arrival time graph somewhere in the 3.5 milliseconds range. So again, very useful data. I can again resize this, make it something that doesn't take up an awful lot of space. For example, if you wanted to do OTT, maybe you had OTT and you wanted an OTT page and you wanted to see all profiles on one page, all profiles for one stream. Again, you could do that quite easily. There are various alarms that we can put on. We can show, I'm not sure what this is going to show. Oh, this is like a penalty box. So this is a penalty box of all the most serious alarms that are current on the VBC. You can see the very top one is the VB243, there's no contact. And we can make that a bit bigger, I think. There we are. So we can make this as wide or as tall as we like. So you could have an alarm penalty box, which was active. Remember, all of this is dynamic. Anything that changes updates immediately. If I wanted to look to see how this would look as actually a canvas being shown properly, I can use the eyeball button. And this will actually show me the web page actually working. So now you can see the thumbnails updating, and if there were any errors down here on the media window, they would appear. Any changes to the alarm penalty box up here would change. Obviously we're not looking at any live audio because all I've got is tone on this. So you have complete flexibility. Let's look at some of the other things that we can add. A slide, a graphic basically. We can have a countdown clock. Let's put a countdown clock, shall we? So countdown, so we can decide when is our deadline. Say our maintenance contract ran out next April, in 12 months time. Then I could add a countdown timer and then that would display. We've seen clocks on the original thing that I showed. Stream view weather. Okay, the weather's a standard widget actually. So whoops, wrong one. We select, you can see all the widgets that we're actually loading onto this canvas appearing on the right hand side. So it's just a question of clicking the one that you want and configuring that widget on the right hand side. So the weather we can select, I don't know, Australia, Brisbane, I don't know. And there's the weather in Brisbane. Now, of course, this is a live weather feature. And if we checked the little I button, then this would tell us what the temperature is last updated 5 hours ago. Get rid of that. Some of the others, well, we saw redundancy. If you have a redundant system, a 243 or a 273, the intelligent RF redundancy for satellite or ASI redundant, micro ETR, OTT graph, OTT status, constellation diagram. If we wanted to look at a constellation diagram from one of our RF probes, I don't know, what have we got? What have we actually got with a I'm not sure there's anything on this. A QAM constellation diagram. And you can see that QAM 256 QAM constellation diagram updating with a nice QAM signal. Anyway, let's go and have a look at some of the others that people have created. So we've got OTT Multi-Screen. All of these can be moved. You can see we've got things like a large text box here. We've got smaller text box above each of these different OTT displays. A clock in the middle. I think one of our okay, so there we can see an 8PSK S2 signal. We've got a logo there, so we've imported a JPEG as a logo. That could just as easily be a channel ident. terrestrial distribution. Again, nothing. Oh, there we have a nice COFDM DVB-T2 constellation diagram there. And again, things like modulation error rate. So we have actually got a live signal on this, and you can see the modulation error rate having changed over the last few hours, for example, and a thumbnail. So if we look at this, these are both still pictures. Actually, no, that's not a still picture. I do apologise. That's not true. IP monitoring. So really, you can tailor these canvases. Remember, there's an unlimited number of canvases. So you could tailor individual canvases for individual requirements. Someone like a network manager might want to see things like how the network is behaving, how things like multicast are behaving, whether he's getting a lot of jitter. Then you might have an RF engineer who wants to look at screens showing the RF feeds incoming from your downlink. Onward distribution, DVB-T terrestrial distribution system. You might want to have multiple screens showing the terrestrial transmitters out in the regions. And because you've got things like carousels, you can carousel around multiple screens, always showing the right thing. And again, you can tailor this screen. You can change the resolution to make it appropriate for something like a tablet. And a tablet is more than happy to log in. And once you've gone through this process of assigning a device to a particular screen, so that's that one that we played around with, and we threw that together in a couple of minutes. I wanted to show you. Let me just go to training again. So if I wanted to add a clock, and then the other nice thing that you can do is, so we could say clock, let's call that London. So we'll make that a little bit bigger, 18. And we say it's this particular time, local time. So if we go to the eye and have a look. Oh, London didn't come up. Anyway, that's the time in London. And the nice thing about these widgets and clocks and thumbnails and things like that we've dragged onto the canvas is we can copy and paste them very easily. But I can do things like I can select this one. I can select the lot off the, I could say, I don't know, New York. So this would be then New York. New York. So you can see that you could add a world clock across the top if you wanted to. In fact, I thought one of ours actually had that. Not that one. Yeah, there we are. That's got 4 clocks. We also got these countdown timers that I talked about earlier. We've also got 3 views of the same OTT stream. Again, I'm labouring this point and I'm going to stop right now. But the point is, these are as flexible as you want them to. It's a really, really effective way of visualising data. The probes are collecting data 24/7, and they're collecting a mass of data. And sometimes it's not always clear what that data is showing you, particularly if you go back to it in the past. So I wanted to see what happened 6 hours ago. I do need to click and dig around. But with the remote data wall, I have instant access to as much of that data as I want. And it's simply a VBC license. It will utilize every scrap of data coming from the probes. But I will just reiterate one point. and that is the thumbnails must be generated by a VB288. So if you wanted 100 thumbnails, then you would need one VB288. If you wanted 200 thumbnails, then you'd need two, etc. So the limitation that the VB288 has, with only being able to display 64 of its 100 thumbnails, that limitation is removed in the VBC. The remote data wall can show as many thumbnails as you have in your system. And it just sits there on the VBC and it works perfectly well. It doesn't matter how many canvases you've got. It's HTML5. It's fairly lightweight in processing terms. So there you have it. There is a quick walk around the remote data wall. I hope I've shown you enough to make you want to look at it further. Remember, vbc.bridgetech.tv/vbc, and you can log in as demo, username demo, password demo, and you can look around and see the things that I've seen here. You won't be able to see, remember, some of these canvases are owned by admin. In fact, only 2 of them are owned by admin. So you won't be able to see those. And now I'm just going to delete that now as well. I'm going to remove training. Gone. If I wanted to clone OTT Multi-Screen, because it's a really nice one, then I could clone that. And now I would have a new OTT Multi-Screen that maybe, I've managed somehow to do that twice. So I would now have another canvas based on my OTT Multi-Screen that I could then just tweak and change maybe the channels, essentially the same layout but different channels, or maybe I tweak the layout. So you don't have to go through all that work every single time. I need to remove those 2 now. Remove and remove. And there we are. So thanks very much for spending the last 40 minutes with me. I do appreciate that. Remember, there will be a quiz. If you want to take the quiz, you're more than welcome to take it. Just test your understanding of this little relatively new addition to the VBC. It's only been around about 2 years. If you can think of how this would be introduced to your customer, you can now probably show them a demo of how it works, because you've seen how it works, and you could set up your own canvas if you wanted to. You could actually show them how easy it is to set up, show your customers how much they can visualize the data that their monitoring system is actually already collecting. Just add this VBC license and you're up and running, and you'll be having these canvases shown on displays within an hour or so. It's that simple. Okay, folks, well, thank you very much for your time. I do appreciate it, as always. I know during these times of lockdown, it's nice to have people turning up and listening in. I hope it's been useful. Any comments you may have, anything you think I've missed that I could add when I edit this into YouTube, please let me know. In the meantime, next week we'll be looking at the archive server, which is another VBC addition. So thanks for your time, and everybody stay safe and keep well.